of here. Find some weapons. You two, get your asses over here. I need help. Come on.
Go!
Length. That's the hot topic with this game. We can't apparently have a released game anymore without some level of disappointment or controversy, and in this case it's been about how long the game itself lasts. I can allay those fears to some extent. My playthrough on medium difficulty took about 10 hours, but more on that later. The premise behind the Order 1886 is intriguing. You play Sir Galahad of the Order of Knights of the Round Table of Arthurian legend, based in an alternative Victorian London, with the mission to hunt werewolves, or lycans as they're rather trendily known in-game. This takes the form of a cover-based third-person shooter through various chapters interspersed with the inevitable cutscenes and quick-time events. The individual levels vary between corridor shooting, stealth and exploration with some problem-solving. There is no doubt that this game looks lovely. The developers, Ready at Dawn, spoke enthusiastically throughout the lead-up to release about creating a cinematic experience, and this is achieved with an aspect ratio of 1920 by 800 resolution and a solid 30 FPS throughout the game. Personally, this disappointed me, as I would have expected a PS4 exclusive with a completely new engine to have been running with 1080p 60 FPS as The Last of Us Remastered was able to do. There's been a lot of nonsense written and said about frame rates and resolutions, but ultimately, black bars at the top and bottom of the screen, plus a lower frame rate than expected, ruins the immersion to some extent. Having said that, what the game is able to do better than any other that I've seen is seamlessly sync between cutscene, quick-time event and player-controlled gameplay. There is no loss of graphical quality when switching between these different aspects, and that was pretty impressive to be honest. To be able to see Galahad's impressive moustache at all times was a big old tick for me. Textures are impressive, and Victorian London has never looked so bleak and real. I can genuinely say this is the most graphically impressive game I have ever played on a console. The airship level is a particular treat. In between the cutscenes and quick-time events, the Order 1886 demands the player spends a lot of time walking around London in a linear fashion, examining items and picking up newspapers to fill in the backstory. Combat, when it occurs, is a rather pleasing cover-based shooting system. The guns feel good and there is a nice variety between them, but it's a real shame that Galahad can only carry one primary and one secondary weapon at a time. The enemies, for much of the game, are rebels, East End thugs that require dispatching, with occasional fights against the Lycans. This to me was something of a disappointment. The trailers had led me to expect a kind of Van Helsing type feel, fighting half-breeds in the fog of Whitechapel, not just blasting some human oiks apart before quick-timing my way through the odd werewolf. As far as the storyline goes, now, I'm not normally one for single-player games. I genuinely prefer online multiplayer, so my opinion of the storyline is coloured slightly by that. I still haven't finished The Last of Us, or Tomb Raider, or a multitude of other games that are celebrated for their immersive storytelling. My opinion is that the Order 1886 told a good story well. I felt immersed and was genuinely interested with what would happen next without being completely blown away by it. The conceits are quite formulaic, and with no opportunity for the player to affect the ending. I was gripped and looked forward to a sequel, but wished there had been a couple of hours worth of backstory and combat before the main plot kicked in. So the big point with this game has been the question of value. Will you get your $60 worth of game out of it? That depends. As I said earlier, I haven't finished The Last of Us, but consider that to have been money well spent. My playthrough on the Order took me about 10 hours on medium difficulty, and although I've spent far more time than that on some AAA titles, I've also spent far less than that on others. Watch Dogs. The value and enjoyment for me stem from the production values, the graphics, the voice acting, the overall immersion, far more than the mechanics of the game or its overall length. So, would I recommend you buy this game? That's up to you. If you find the concept intriguing and want to see what a PS4 can do graphically, then I would say yes. If you expect more than 10 hours worth of gameplay and demand replayability, then it's probably best to leave it. Overall, I'd suggest waiting for the inevitable price drop and investing then. The Order 1886 feels like a launch title that came out 18 months too late. Although I enjoyed it enormously and presentation wise it's a tremendous achievement, there's not quite enough there for me to fully recommend it. I do hope you've enjoyed this review. Please leave your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. Take care, good night, good afternoon and good day.